Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the spectacular youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. What's shaking today, my friend?
Not too much. I think my day went as fast as it ever has in the morning, so that's a plus, I suppose. But as far as big news, like last week, I think, or was it last week where I started spitting off random things? I don't remember, but nothing big, nothing.
I don't know. Exciting. One show you said nothing happens, and I said, but when it does, they're like life changing.
Yeah,
like cars burning up, getting married.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
right.
Usually when you got something happening, it's not like small. It's like the name of this show. It wasn't on this show because I referenced this show. It's like when you have a story, you go big with your story. Not like my little tiddlywink everyday occurrences like today. Wonderful. I leave early in the morning for work. I get up, I have coffee. I do a normal routine in the morning. Sometimes my wife needs me to run to a gas station called Sheetz to get a couple things for her for the day. Today was one of those, and I usually go there every day to get gas anyway because I want to get coffee too. So I go there every day anyway. But today she wanted some stuff, so I had to go back home. Well, I get to the Sheetz, I get my gas, fill up, and for some reason, I had my wallet in my hand. I didn't put it back in my pocket. So you know where this is going. And I get home, and I must have put the wallet in the bag for my wife because that's where my wallet was. And so, I'm out and I'm driving around and I'm working all day. And usually I'll like to get some drinks or buy something to maybe nibble on during the day. You've heard me. I've talked about different rock stars I buy, all kinds of stuff. It was that time of the day. It's probably about 11 o'clock, and I usually pack like water in my lunch box, or my wife she'll pack me a little lunch. But sometimes I want something a little more potent, like a rock star or a Game Fuel. Nope, I was at a Sheetz that I was calling on today, and I went to grab 2 rock stars, got all the way up to the counter, plopped them on the counter, and no wallet. All I had in my car was 60 cents in my little console. So that's why I was telling you before. But I couldn't. So the next store I went to, the little market, they had 49 cents sparkling water. I bought a sparkling water, orange mango, 53 cents. Still got 7 cents in my car. So hopefully I don't need to buy anything for 7 cents or more. Well, 8 cents or more, I guess. So there's a little who gives a crap about your story, old man. There you go. That was my day.
Speaking of Troy, you mentioned, actually I already forgot the word you used, but something a little more potent to drink. And today when I got home, not that I needed anything crazy, but I was looking for something other than water, and we always have tea in the house. And today, just so happened, I forgot that we ran out of tea last night. So was I going to go back out to the store after I had gotten home finally and I was all, ready to go, just ready to plop my butt down and do what I want to do? No, I wasn't going to go out. The only thing we had that was not water, there was 1 beer left in the fridge. So what am I drinking right now? A beer.
On the podcast.
Just drinking a beer on the podcast. I don't know if I've ever, maybe I've done it like once or twice before, but had to do it because water was just not going to quench my thirst at this point in time.
Unfortunately, while we're doing this podcast, I'm not allowed to drink a beer.
You don't even have your license, do you?
Today, no. If I get pulled over, I could get a fine for that.
Right.
So adding a beer to that mix would probably not be a really good idea. We'll pass on that. So let's get to some Big Ten sports. We're going to change it up a little bit. We have not mentioned this one time all year. Hockey. No hockey. No Big Ten hockey. We didn't talk about it all year. Probably partly because, Kevin, not a lot going on in Big Ten hockey. Only Ohio State made the Final 16. Nobody in the Frozen Four this year. Nothing good. But, I mean, you look at it, a little down year in hockey. Usually Big Ten hockey is putting a couple of teams in position to possibly get to the Frozen Four. I mean, Notre Dame, you don't want to get me started on this affiliation with Notre Dame, Kevin. But they're in the Big Ten hockey league, and so therefore that's a good, solid program. Penn State always has a good hockey program, Wisconsin. But Penn State and Wisconsin tied for 5th. You know, Minnesota's always got to – go ahead.
By the way, I forgot to mention Notre Dame did make it. They actually did make it. They made it to the second round. So there were 2 teams. Ohio State was one. They lost. But they lost in the first round, but I'm glad you mentioned Notre Dame. And I have the standings right in front of me, and we went down the standings, and I forgot to include Notre Dame because, again, like you said, but Notre Dame usually don't contribute with the Big Ten. I was sitting there, looking at the 16 teams that made it, and I was like, oh, only Ohio State. And then we talked about the standings, and, Notre Dame was number 2. But Notre Dame's in there. Notre Dame won in overtime in the first round, lost in the second round to UMass, and UMass eventually lost in the title game to Minnesota Duluth. But, so there were 2 teams, I guess the top 2 teams from the Big Ten standings this year. Ohio State was 1, Notre Dame 2. Notre Dame just made it around further. But, nobody, and they didn't push UMass at all. They lost 4-0. So nobody made the Frozen Four, and Notre Dame.
I'd rather have Minnesota Duluth in the Big Ten than Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame's got a good hockey program, but again, I go down that road where you want to pick and choose what conferences for what sports you play in. I don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about the Big. We've talked about the Big Ten. Not to interrupt you again. Last time we talk about the Big Ten every single week for the last 3 years. And again, we went over the Big Ten standings. I looked at what the top 16 teams were that made up the top 16, the playoff for hockey. And Notre Dame just completely slipped my mind. And again, we talk about this conference year after year after year. We've talked about hockey in the past as well. But,
usually
again,
only when the Frozen Four comes out.
Yeah. But so if I slip up and look over it, a couple times before I realize, unless you're a legitimate college hockey fan or a Big Ten hockey fan, who else knows that, really? I don't know. Not to say Notre Dame doesn't belong, they shouldn't be in there, but I'm with you. It seemed like Minnesota Duluth should be, not because they won the championship, but it just makes sense. It makes more sense than Notre Dame does it.
It does. And here's my one thing. I know we're not going to get into Minnesota Duluth, they won the championship. Great. My thing with the Frozen Four and the NCAA hockey tournament, Kevin, is it runs right at the end of March Madness or right after the beginning. I mean, it's the same time, and I understand it's springtime and you only got so much time, but I did not see this thing advertised. You would think that during the biggest college or the biggest basketball tournament in the world, where there's not one bigger, that the NCAA would promote some of its other sports. Now, again, I didn't watch every minute of every game, so maybe there was some promotion that went on. But I watched a fair amount. Watched a fair amount, and I never saw an advertisement for the hockey championships. I rarely saw stuff for the women's championship, and I like women's college basketball.
The men's championship game was April 8th. The Frozen Four starts on the 11th. It starts 3 days after. I mean, there's no reason not to promote the heck out of that, to extend some viewing eyeballs to the NCAA. Hey, three days after the championship ends, look at hockey. There's only 3 games to watch. Frozen Four, here we go. Not doing anything, check out the semifinals, check out the championship.
Yeah, I wish they'd move the whole tournament, though, Kevin. Because if you look, I think the first round games of the final 16 was on March 9th?
29th and 30th. So, I mean, that's going on. That's going on literally during the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. It's the same exact date. Yeah. It's that.
Yeah. So
Friday, Saturday. So.
And again, I love hockey, Kevin. When I attended UW Whitewater, I always got to get a plug on UW Whitewater. I always do. Had I followed a couple more people from the Royal Purple, not to get off point, but we do on this show. Followed a couple more Royal Purple people on Twitter last night, my friend. I have no idea who they are. They're a lot younger than you are even, but maybe we could have Talking Sports with the youngster and the real young.
Do you remember any names or no?
No, they just popped up in suggestions. You know how they on the side it'll say suggested friends, and I saw a little UW Whitewater Warhawk, and I'm like, oh, UW Whitewater, gotta follow this person. Don't care who you are. I love my school. I love UW Whitewater, Kevin. So
great times. Great times.
My point to that was when I attended UW Whitewater, we were a hop, skip, and a jump away from Madison. And I knew a lot of people at Whitewater that were from Madison, and their parents or their family had season tickets to the Badgers, Badger hockey. And I would go every weekend when there was a home game, like literally every weekend to watch Badger hockey. I loved it. And so I love college hockey. But again, unless I'm sitting there researching, knowing that this Frozen Four is going on, you've got to search for times, dates. I don't even think. Maybe it was on ESPN. I don't know. Nobody told me. I had to go look.
Yeah, that was my issue with the AAF, the Allegiance of American Football, that lasted not even one season. I remember, realizing the day after, people were talking about, oh, did you see, this game? Oh, did you see the ratings? They were pretty decent. It's like, oh, I literally didn't even know they were on. That's a marketing issue. That's if you want to promote the heck out of your sport, then I'll actually tune in for 5 minutes to watch, at least. Same goes for the Frozen Four. I would have turned it on at some point.
I'm sure you would have tuned into Ohio State game and the Notre Dame game. Well, maybe not Notre Dame. Again, I have a huge problem. And again, it's not because they're not a good hockey team. I have a huge problem with them being in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
If you want to be in the Big Ten, get all your sports, get all your butts in the conference.
That's the other thing is in football, they have an ACC schedule, and they're not even affiliated with the ACC.
And that's partly because of their ACC basketball agreement. That was part of the deal. If they get in the ACC for basketball, they've got to play X amount of ACC football teams. And so that's ridiculous. Yeah. You want to be independent, or you want to be in a conference. So now you got me all worked up again because I cannot stand the idea that Notre Dame is in multiple conferences for multiple sports. I don't know how many times I got to say it. I think you get the gist. I'm going to turn it back over to you and take a drink of this nice orange mango sparkling water that cost me 49 cents.
I don't know how much this beer cost me. I know it's fairly cheap. It's not garbage beer, but when you buy an 8-pack, 16-pack, it's 12-pack, whatever. I don't know, per bottle. It can't be that much. But anyway, in any case, I'm with you. I mean, Notre Dame to be an independent / in the ACC / in the Big Ten / who knows what for tennis and water polo and rowing and I don't know. But in any case, I'm with you. It's weird. It's kind of weird in basketball when you see that, when you have teams in the Big East and then they don't even have a football team, or their football team's in a different conference, or that kind of happens with a few schools. So I don't know. It's weird. That I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about it. But just overall, if you're the NCAA, why do you not promote this more? Especially the Frozen Four. I understand you want to get all eyeballs on the Sweet 16, Elite 8 for college basketball, but the Frozen Four is after the men's championship game, 3 days after.
It's good hockey.
Right. There are professional players on those teams, I guarantee.
Yeah, there are guys that teams have rights to those guys.
Right.
Literally. And so when they're done playing college hockey, they can go to the minors. I mean, I saw some highlights, and it's just man, people want to talk about all the foreign guys that come into the NHL, and that's great. But there's a lot of great talent just, born and raised right here in the United States. And I know Canada has a lot of great players. And some of those guys that are playing college hockey are from Canada. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of great hockey players that are born right here in the United States. And if you watch any of the Frozen Four and watch any of the highlights, man, there's some good players. But yeah, they don't market it to the common fan, and I think they're doing themselves an injustice. Well, let's move on. We're going to do a little foreshadowing today, youngster. No recapping, no previewing. This is foreshadowing Big Ten basketball 2019. Oh, my gosh, 2020 already. 2019-2020 season.
Right.
Where have all the years went? Because, in the year 2020, youngster, I turned the big 5-0. Cannot wait. Right? Cannot. But, yeah, we're going to do a little foreshadowing, go over each of the teams, who's decided to go into the draft that might be a surprise. Some guys might be a little irked at their playing time, might want to transfer schools. And some guys are graduating, which is going to hurt some of the programs also. So turn it back over to you, youngster. You're taking the lead. I'm just going to interrupt you when I feel fit.
Sounds good. I think my internet just went out, but I don't think it matters. I did my prep yesterday. So this is as of April 15th. We're recording the show on April 16th, but I haven't necessarily looked into literally the latest as of the last 20 hours. But we were basically looking at seniors that graduated from every single Big Ten team, excuse me, as well as mainly just NBA draft participants, guys looking to leave early, guys that want to leave early, guys that are testing the waters but probably going to stay, all that type of stuff. Again, this is going to go by fairly quickly. Not going to say it's going to go by in a flash, but we want to go through every single team.
We're going to talk about hockey for like 2 minutes, and that lasted 2 minutes.
That took like 15. So, anyway.
Never tell the listeners that we're going to be done in a flash. Well, you didn't say that. Rather quickly. We don't finish anything rather quickly. So if you're new to this show and you've already listened and you made it through all the hogwash of us talking, you're probably going to be on this for another, I'm not even going to give you a time, but we'll get off the tree limb, go on to the branch, and then we don't break the branch. We eventually go back to the tree trunk, but we get off on a lot of branches doing this show. But that's what makes it pretty cool. Been doing it for 3 years now, youngster. 3 years we've been doing this show.
Yeah. It's awesome. I enjoy it. So, again, we're looking at every single Big Ten basketball team here post, what happened this past March Madness and season. Like Troy said, going into the 2020 season, technically, 2019, 2020. So the recruiting class, if you're interested in that whole thing, is the recruiting class of 2019. But so not really talking about recruiting necessarily. I mean, I might, throw it in there for a couple teams just because. But overall, just looking at who comes back, what's changing with these programs. Starting at the bottom of the Big Ten standings, Northwestern, there are zero players reportedly looking to test the NBA waters. And I think I mentioned this on last week's show that players can actually hire agents now, but they basically, so here's a little timeline here. 60 days prior to the NBA draft, players have to declare, aka throw their name in the hat, saying, hey, I'm willing to go through the process of, checking out the combine, seeing what owners and GMs and scouts and coaches and, all that NBA personnel stuff, what they have to say to me, and, do I have a long way to go? Should I come out now realistically? Should I potentially wait a year, just improve my game a little bit, maybe help my draft stock to get some, extra guaranteed money? That's what some of these players do. Just because you declare, and now, starting this year, you can even hire an agent and still withdraw your name eventually and come back to college. So this is the first year that has happened. So don't be afraid if you're, a Michigan State fan and it's like, oh, Cassius Winston signed an agent. He's testing the NBA waters. He's declaring for the NBA draft. I know it sounds official when you say Cassius Winston declaring for the NBA draft, but still he has time to withdraw his name.
And I'm going to interrupt here, youngster, and I love this idea that they're allowing them to have an agent.
Yeah.
Because I've always talked about this, no matter if it's basketball, no matter if it's football, whatever sport it is, of people declaring early. and wanting to go to the draft. And you and I have talked about it on a number of our shows. Well, he got bad advice from someone because at that point, you need people that are not going to be your friend. Like, you and I are going to talk to each other. We listen to our show. We talk about the show. You and I both love the show. That's great. But we like when third-party people tell us they like the show. Are we doing a good job? You and I think we're doing a good job. But we need somebody that is not in our circle of friends, that is not, in our buddy-buddy system, to actually come out and say, you know what, you guys do a good job. That's where we get our validation. I could care less if my brother says, hey, that was a good show. Yeah, okay, you're my brother. You're going to tell me it's a good show.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Sometimes you won't, but you know what I mean.
Like my mom. That's like my mom, Troy. I mean, I do some NFL guest appearances on some Canadian radio station during the NFL season, and my mom will listen in. She's like, oh, you sounded great. It's like, thanks, but at the end of the day, what are you going to, tell me I sounded like garbage?
Yeah, she likes all the posts I put out on Facebook when I tag you.
Does she?
Nice.
That's good.
At first, I'm like, who the heck is this? And I'm like, oh, that's the youngster's mom. But my point to this is, now a player can actually get that third-party fair assessment. Like, okay, you've hired me, and for the agents, they're going to make some money. I don't know if they're going to have like a rule in where, you can hire me, and if you go back to college, you still owe me money.
You still owe me $15,000.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
What?
I don't know how that works.
Well, this is why we shouldn't have said this show might be over quickly. My thought is that if I'm an agent and you declare, you come out, Kevin, and say, hey, I want to test the waters, I'll be like, hey, you know what, youngster? Great idea. I'll sign you. You owe me no money. No money if you decide to go back to college. However, this contract is binding so that when you are eligible for the draft, I'm your agent. That's how I'd work it. That's literally how I'd work it. I mean, you got to sign a contract that I am your agent, and if you decide to go, I mean, the problem is, though, you can't have your agent while you're playing in college. But I mean, I'm sure these agents are smart enough where they can get some verbiage, like, okay, I helped you decide what you were going to do, therefore, this agreement becomes active again once you are eligible for the NBA draft. Something like that. Or you just pay them. Because, agents don't work for free, youngster. But I like the idea. Because now these players are going to get a fair assessment. And you know what, Kevin? You got to think about this. If I'm an average player in college and I go to an agent and this agent's like, this guy is not going to make me a dime, I'm not going to sign him. You know what I'm saying? So the agent might be right up front with a player like, hey, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not signing you because you're going to have to go back to college, so let's not waste our time.
Right.
And that very well could happen because that's what a smart agent would do. If I was an agent and there was a player that was borderline, I mean, I guess it would depend on how hard up I am for clients. But if there was a borderline guy that I'm like, well, I don't even know if you're going to make an NBA roster, let alone get drafted, I'd be like, you should go back to school or find another agent. That's all I got. Continue.
Yeah, murky waters, but I'm curious as to how exactly that works. So again, quick timeline. These players have until April 21st to declare, aka anyone who's curious about the process should go in, because you can only gain information from going in. There are obviously more people that go in that withdraw their names than go in and stay in, because again, only 60 guys get drafted, and about 20 of them will come from overseas, and you and I have never even heard of them. So there's only really a few college players that are realistically going to get drafted. And there are guys, we've seen this, I think last year, there was a guy from Rutgers who had like a year or two left of eligibility, and he threw his name in And he said, yep, I'm gone. And he knew he wasn't going to get drafted. But I don't even remember the player's name, but potentially he's playing in Greece now. Potentially he's playing in Sri Lanka now. I have no idea. So there are players, too, that it's like, really? This guy's, going through the process? And it's like, look at any mock draft. You're not getting drafted. What's the point of this? Part of this is just to compete for an extra month or so against players that are around your skill level that you're trying to become in order to get drafted, or you're just sick of being at Rutgers and you just want to play professionally and get money in Greece. I mean, that's another thing as well. So you can't really scoff at some of these decisions. Some of these guys, it's like, realistically, can I help my draft stock that much if I'm a fringe draft pick anyway? Or should I just go out now and, hey, if I get drafted, excellent, making, X amount of dollars. Even if I barely miss out on getting drafted, I'll be in the G League. I'm good enough to be in the G League and make money there and be with the team there, and eventually hopefully get called up and make my way into the NBA that way. Or if none of that works out, I can go overseas if I have to. So, again, there might be some names here that I mentioned that it's like, really, that guy is testing it? But it realistically makes sense. And even if they're saying, yeah, I'm done with this program, and they basically know they're not going to get drafted, again, there's a number of different outlets these guys can go to. If they're just tired of college basketball and they know they don't really have...
I really wish, youngster, that the NBA with this Dreamer League that they got going on, that they would extend the draft. Like, they would add a couple more rounds. That way you can...
I don't disagree.
You can get a couple more players. If you extended the draft by 2 more rounds, you can get quality players. I mean, I'm sure they're out there signing really good free agents, but if you're going to have, I'll call it by the right name, if you're going to have the G League and you're going to have all these dreamers in there, why not give them a chance? Like, why don't you just extend your draft to draft your team? Like, okay, we're going to have X amount of players. We need X amount of players for this team. Just have it like a training camp where we're going to draft 6 rounds, and these 3 extra players, or sometimes even the second round pick has to play in that league, Kevin, because they're taking a flyer, a good team like the Warriors. They don't need immediate help. So if they like a guy's athleticism, they might take a fly on a guy in the second round, be like, yeah, let's see if he can develop something. Well, that would be perfect. I just think the NBA, if they're going to, it's funny. See, now I'm going off on the tree branch right now. So we look at the NBA, Kevin, and when the Dreamer League came out, I kind of scoffed at it, but it serves a point. How many times do we see that so-and-so has been reassigned to the G League and so-and-so has been called up from the G League when there's an injury? End of the season, these guys are on rosters playing, right? So the NBA, they've done it right with this kind of minor league system for their entity. And I wanted to throw that out because we just talked about the Alliance folding a couple weeks ago on a different show. The NFL could make it work. They really could. Because what is the G League, like 10 games, Kevin? 12 games, something like that?
As far as the regular season?
Yeah.
No, it's a lot.
I'm thinking more about the summer league, the summer Dreamer League before the season.
Summer league. Yeah, summer league is like 5 games maybe. Yeah, G League runs almost the same as the NBA, realistically. I know it's a little shorter, but.
So again, my point here is that the NFL could make this work if they really wanted to have a minor league system. I just don't think they want to.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on. I'm back on the tree trunk.
All right. So April 21st is the declaration date, which is again 60 days prior to the NBA draft, and then these players have until May 29th to withdraw, which I think is like a week after the combine. I want to say it's somewhere around there, but fairly close to the draft, NBA draft. These guys can pull back and say, hey, actually, I'm coming back to college. Nothing official yet. Once these decisions are officially made, we'll announce them on the show. But anyway, going to Northwestern, going to the bottom of the Big Ten standings, which, again, you can. We talked about, obviously, this entire college basketball season. We talked about the Big Ten and how strong it was, and you look at the conference itself and top to bottom, and at the end of the day, Northwestern was at the bottom, and we talked about how Rutgers and Illinois improved, and we're not going to get, too much into that. But Northwestern was the team on the bottom, 4-16 in conference. People knew they were going to take a step down because they lost a few key players from a couple years ago when they barely missed out on the tournament. So this was not a huge shocker. But basically, of their top 10 scorers, they graduated 2, Vic Law, Derek Perdone. Those are 2 talented guys. That's what kept Northwestern afloat, I think, for a while. They weren't on the bottom of the Big Ten until 13th, 14th, 15th game. That's when Nebraska went on a little run, stuff like that. But Northwestern has 0 players, supposedly, reportedly, testing the NBA waters. So they're getting 8 of their top 10 scorers back. And as far as recruiting goes, to keep it extremely quick, Northwestern, they're 4th right now in the Big Ten for 2019 recruiting. Again, this is, not finalized, but 2019 recruiting, Northwestern's 4th. They got a 4-star supposedly committed and a couple 3-stars. So maybe injecting some talent into the program there. So we'll see what Northwestern's about, but basically they graduate 2 of their top 10 scorers from a year ago. So we'll see. But, isn't a 2019-2020 preview show exactly, but just giving a little forecast, as Troy said before. Moving on, cut me off whenever you feel you should, Troy. But Northwestern. Moving on from Northwestern, Nebraska was 2nd from the bottom. This was a complete disappointment. We talked about this all year long. Basically, they fired their coach, Tim Miles, and they got Fred Hoiberg, which, I'm not going to have a lot of, outside little jut out information about these teams, but this is interesting because Nebraska has a new head coach in Fred Hoiberg, who was fantastic at Iowa State, went to the Bulls in the NBA, didn't work out. Now he's going back to college, and he's going to Nebraska, and I think Fred Hoiberg is an excellent coach. I think he did a fantastic job at Iowa State, had some really good teams there, had some NBA players there. So I think if you're Nebraska basketball, you have to be pretty excited about this hire. I know UCLA just got Mick Cronin, who's a very good coach from Cincinnati most recently, but Fred Hoiberg, I think, is you can name, Calipari and Izzo and Jay Wright and Coach K and those guys, but after that, elite 5, 6, 7 names, Fred Hoiberg probably is in there, potentially in the top 10. That's why he got an NBA job. So I think this is a fantastic hire for Nebraska. And you got anything on that, Troy, before I get into them a little bit?
Where was Iowa State before Hoiberg got there?
Right. Not doing too much.
Did anybody even know Iowa State had a basketball team? Now, and here's the thing, it's been a while since he's been there. But they're still constantly a 4 to 6 to 7 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
He put together, what he did there was just amazing. That he took this small little school, and I know where Iowa State is. I coached soccer in Iowa for 4 years. And
they're in Ames, aren't they?
Yeah. Little small Iowa city. But who even knew of Iowa State? Everybody knows Iowa. It's you had to, blink your eyes twice. Is it really Iowa State in the tournament and not Iowa? And Iowa State's giving Iowa a game? Who's Iowa State? Well, that's what he did. He put together a foundation.
Was a lot better. They were a lot better than Iowa when Hoiberg was there. There's no question about that.
Well, and that's my point, is that he turned that program around, and now he has, and the successors have taken over and basically have built on that foundation. I think Nebraska got a steal. I'm really surprised he did not end up at UCLA. I really am. But Nebraska, like you said, Nebraska fans, and I'll tell you what, Kevin, I know I cheer for the Badgers. You don't legitimately have your favorite team in the Big Ten. We do a Big Ten show. This hire was great for the Big Ten because the more quality teams you have, the more quality coaches you have, the better the conference is going to be. And Nebraska, I'm sure he'll go in. He'll put his touch on it. Maybe it's not next year. You're going to talk about who they're losing. Maybe it's a couple years from now. But this guy is going to set down a very solid foundation for Nebraska basketball. Carry on.
Yeah, they graduate their top 3 scorers. Again, this was an older, senior-laden team who had talent, and they were second to the bottom in the Big Ten standing. So, again, a huge disappointment. You get a coaching change in there. You bring in arguably a top 10 college basketball coach, in my eyes. Maybe you can name 10 guys that are better, but, okay, top 15. There's no question. So, great coaching hire. You graduate your top 3 scorers. Isaiah Roby was the 4th leading scorer. He averaged, 11 and 6. Sorry, almost 11 and 7. It sounds like he's gone. It sounds like, hey, I was with this team. We did a very disappointing job this season. Now we have a coaching change. I'm gone. It's not official yet, but I think it was on Twitter. He posted something like, thanks for the last 3 years, yada, yada, yada. So it sounds like they're losing their top 4 scorers. But, again, Fred Hoiberg will recruit guys that will do well for him. No question that I think the best days of Nebraska basketball are ahead. Can't remember the last time Nebraska was in the tournament. Can't remember. So I think they will be in the next few years, probably not next year. Like Troy said, losing a lot, but 2 years, 3 years, could see it. 4 years, 5 years, I'd be surprised if they're not, to be honest. So that's really it with Nebraska. Moving on up is Rutgers. They have no players.
Did I lose you, youngster?
What I was saying was none of this is really official. There are, transfers to be had. I know, like Marquette, that's like the big news, I guess, in the college basketball world is Marquette is losing a couple guys to transfer. People think they might go to Wisconsin potentially. I'll bring that up again when we talk about Wisconsin, but more or less they're supposed to go to Virginia, but we'll see. Again, nothing official there. Can you hear me now, Troy?
Yeah, I went in and out because I don't know if it was my phone or your phone.
Oh, I don't know. I heard you ding out, though. Not sure, but I kept talking about Rutgers and basically how none of this is official yet. There are transfers to be had, so, don't say, hey, the youngster said, that Rutgers is returning their top 9 guys. Why are they not? 2 months from now, well, guys can transfer. Guys can, do a number of things. So anyway, Rutgers is supposed to gain or regain its top 9 scorers, and none of these guys are supposedly entering the draft process, let alone the draft. So Rutgers is getting a lot of these guys back who, again, compared to a year ago, they did a really nice job. So Rutgers basketball talks about the CIT. I don't even know if that's possible because I talked about how only mid-major teams made the CIT, but maybe next year for the NIT, Troy, with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights.
I'm going to hope. 2 years I've been on this Rutgers bandwagon.
Make it 3 next year.
And, I always like the underdog. I will say this in a very serious manner. They exceeded every expectation I had of them for this year in the Big Ten.
Yep.
I mean, I'll use your phrase. If I had a hat, I'd give a hat off. I really would. I had plenty at home, but none in the car. But hats off to Rutgers. I mean, they exceeded my expectation above and beyond. I thought for sure you talk about Northwestern being at the bottom of the Big Ten. I thought that would be Rutgers.
Right.
Maybe they would have been one slot out of the bottom.
And Rutgers was tied. It was 7-13. They were tied with Illinois and Penn State. Rutgers was tied for the 5th worst. And they were a game behind Ohio State in the Big Ten standings. 1 game.
Yeah.
And Ohio State made the tournament. So, anyway.
All I got.
Got anything more on Rutgers? Okay. Moving on up to Illinois. There are a couple freshmen. I mentioned, especially Desunmu. I mentioned his name a few times, the guard. There's 6'9", I want to say. Giorgio, I remember saying his name a couple times. Bezhanishvili. Both these guys are freshmen. Both of them are talented. It's doubtful that they're going to enter the NBA draft and leave Illinois after 1 year. But they are talented guys. They showed that this past year. Basically, the team graduates one of its top 8 scorers. If you're getting both these guys back and 7 of your top 8, and Brad Underwood getting more guys into a system that he wants to recruit to get up and down the court, we saw improvement from Illinois this year, much like Rutgers. So Illinois was able to push some teams, got some upsets, same thing with Rutgers. And if you're keeping some talented guards and a talented big in Illinois, that only bodes well for the future, obviously. So I think brighter days are ahead for Illinois next year. Same thing with Rutgers. And, Nebraska, Northwestern, we'll see what happens. But Illinois and Rutgers are on the way up, and this past year they went 7-13. So to say that Illinois or Rutgers will hit 10 wins and go 10-10, it's really not as ridiculous as you might think. And if you go 10-10, that's exactly what Iowa did. And Iowa, pushed Tennessee in the second round. So not to say Rutgers and Illinois are making the NCAA tournament next year, but theoretically they should improve. I know that doesn't, work out in the standings every year. Just because your team gets better doesn't mean your overall record does. But anyway, Illinois and Rutgers theoretically should be better next year than they are this year. So, got anything on the Illini, Troy?
Nada.
Okay. Moving on, or actually, one quick thing. Illinois' recruiting class right now is ranked 8th in the Big Ten. Nebraska's 11th. Rutgers is 13th. So, just for anyone randomly curious. Moving on up to Penn State. There are Lamar Stevens is a talented guy from this team this past year, and Penn State, again, they were 0-10 in the Big Ten before they went 7-3 in their last 10. That says it all. I don't really have to say much more than that. But Penn State had a couple of talented guys. They just weren't able to pick up wins the first 10 games. Lamar Stevens is one of them. He said he is going to go through the process. It's not guaranteed as to whether he's going to go into the NBA draft or not, or if he's going to play overseas or go to the G League or whatever. But he has put his name in and declared for the draft, quote unquote. Mike Watkins is another one who theoretically could, but no word has surfaced yet of him. As far as the top 8 scorers for Penn State, they're graduating Josh Reeves, who I believe was a guard and was their number 3 scorer. So that'll hurt. But if you get Stevens back, if you get Watkins back, you're keeping 7 of your top 8 guys. So again, theoretically, Penn State could be better than they were this past season. And this past season, they showed a lot of growing pains and got through that in the last 10 games by going 7-3. So we'll see, when the time comes, what Penn State's roster will look like for the 2019-2020 season. But could be fairly talented in Penn State. Could see all 3 of these teams, Penn State, Illinois, Rutgers, improve, which, will push the teams like Indiana and Ohio State and Minnesota and these teams that, made the NCAA tournament. So only good for the conference. Anything on Penn State?
No Paternos.
No Paterno. Going up to Indiana, 8-12, made the NIT, along with, who's that other team? Oh, Nebraska. Nebraska, I think, made the NIT as well. Indiana, Romeo Langford was, I believe he was the number 5 recruit for 2018. So everyone knew he was probably going to be one and done. He is. He's declared, and he's basically made it known that he's going to the NBA. So as of the latest CBS sports mock drafts, which was, I think, 2 days ago now, he's going number 8 overall. I mean, again, there's really no reason for him to come back if you're projected a top 10 pick. And that's your dream, is to go to the NBA. So can't improve that much more. And if you do, what are you really gaining? But in any case, Romeo Langford probably gone. They graduate Juwan Morgan, who's their number 2 scorer. He's been a very, very talented guy for a very, very long time there. So losing Langford, losing Morgan will hurt. But Archie Miller knows how to recruit, and Indiana, I'm sure, will have guys ready and in the fold to, to make an impact. So right now in the Big Ten, as far as 2019 recruiting, they're number 6. But, you can pick up the number 1 recruit like that, and things can change. So moving on to Ohio State, finally getting into the tournament teams here. Ohio State, Caleb Wesson is a talented big who was suspended a few games, and, Ohio State sputtered without him. They almost missed the tournament because of that, but made the NCAA tournament, made little noise. They had an upset in the first round, but Caleb Wesson has declared for the draft, but again, he can pull his name out. Nothing is certain with him. It's still a question mark as to whether he's going to go or not. I would assume he comes back, but as far as the top 10 goes for Ohio State, graduating the starting backcourt, C.J. Jackson, Keyshawn Woods. Otherwise, the rest of the top 10 is staying for next year. So, again, especially if you get Wesson back, which I think you will, partially also because Andre Wesson, his brother, is on the team for another year. He's a junior. So I think that if it's like, you might get drafted, or you might go in the second round, but probably not a first-round pick, or do you come back to Ohio State, be a stud big man in the conference, especially with Hap gone, especially with, some of these other guys, Bruno Fernando. There are a number of talented bigs who might be gone. So Caleb Wesson could be really that stud big, so to say, next year in this conference. And a lot of people are liking Ohio State as far as the quote-unquote way too early top 25s. If they get Wesson back and, the rest of this team outside of their point guard and shooting guard, who were not fantastic, don't hate me on that, but they weren't fantastic, I think this team could be pretty good. I don't know about as high as some people are saying, but Ohio State, also it must be said that right now Ohio State has the number 1 recruiting class in the Big Ten, and number 9 overall. They have 4 4-stars committed. So again, that's noteworthy. They're bringing in a lot of talented guys. Not to say that bringing in a bunch of star recruits means a bunch of wins and success in the postseason, but especially if you're getting back arguably your top player and the bulk of your top 10 guys from a year ago, and you add 4 really talented guys, that's what is leading people to think Ohio State could be pretty damn good next year. So, especially if Wesson returns, we'll let you know when that happens. But Ohio State could be fairly dangerous next year. A lot more dangerous.
I just don't know why he'd want to even try to go into the draft.
Right. Especially when you're getting all this talent, and it's like, hey, we've got a chance to do something pretty special next year, and you can be the guy inside, and the whole conference is going to know about it, and Ohio State's going to be like, whoa, where'd this team come from? That could be the story of the Big Ten next year is, damn, Ohio State's really good, and Caleb Wesson is really good. He's their go-to guy. He could get a lot of attention next year.
Yeah, I think he could be right now. So I'll do a comparison, and I knew we were doing a show like this. Frank Kaminsky from Wisconsin a few years back, Kevin, he was just a dominant college basketball player. I think you'll agree with that. The guy worked hard, basically did everything you want from a basketball player standpoint in college, and was dominant in games, could take games over. he is nothing more than a role player and a spot starter in the NBA. And he was one of the best players his senior year in college.
Right.
And that's how hard it is to, I'm a great college basketball player. Yeah. And there's 200 other teams that have great players on their teams too.
Right.
There's only 32 NBA teams. And guess what? Only 5 start. So,
and how many guys really, really, really make a big impact? Like 30, maybe. You can point to teams and it's like, where's their star? Like they don't even have one. So.
Yeah, and anyway, that's why I bring up the Kaminsky. I bring him up a lot of times when I'm talking to people about these very good college basketball players. That's great. You're a man amongst kids. And that's Frank the Tank was too. He was just more talented than most of the guys he played against. So he put up gaudy numbers. Averaged nearly 20 points and 10, 12 rebounds a game.
And it took him 4 years to do that.
Yeah. He worked his way up. That's why I like Frank the Tank. Yeah. He wasn't handed the gauntlet and said, here you go, run around with it, you're the man. He had to work his way to be the man. And he worked his way to be a pretty darn good one. But if you go back to that senior year, he was dominant. He was a dominant player. And again, in the NBA, he's an average role player and a spot starter. But good for him. I mean, he's getting paid to do what he loves. Yeah. But my point here is all these really good all-conference players, I'm a dominant force. Yeah, that's great. There's life outside the Big Ten. And that life outside the Big Ten includes a lot of really good basketball players that are a lot better than you are. So I just don't know why I understand why he'd want to declare, because I think that's great. You get to go learn, you get some thoughts. This is what we need you to work on, blah, blah, blah. But this is a guy that I would fully expect to be back in college. And if not, I mean, my jaw would hit the ground. Like, really? What are you doing? What are you doing, bozo? That's what I would say.
Caleb Swanigan, by the way. Caleb Swanigan just finished his second NBA season.
Another one.
He averaged 2 points and 2 rebounds this year. His second year in the NBA.
9 minutes? Did we average 9 minutes a game, if that?
11.
Oh, so he did get to 11.
Actually,
he was
not,
Big Ten
not
Player
really.
of the Year, if I remember correctly, correct?
I believe so.
I believe
that
Frank
was another dominant.
Too.
Probably.
Can you imagine having Frank the Tank and Swanigan on the same college basketball team?
Right.
When they were college basketball players?
Right.
That would have been a dominant team, just those two. That probably would have been a national title team. But now you put them on, if they would play on the same NBA team, people would be like, yeah, okay, whatever.
That's why I laugh. That's why I laugh my you-know-what off when people talk about, Duke, could they beat the Cavs? Yeah, probably. It's like, you're an idiot. You're an idiot for thinking that. You're just an idiot. But
all right, carry on.
Anyway, Minnesota, Amir Coffey is a guy who has a year of eligibility left. He has already said he is going to be going. Is that the NBA? I don't know. He's a very talented guy. I would assume that he could make an NBA roster. I don't know if he'll get drafted. But, again, he could play professionally overseas. He could go to the G League. He'll make money playing basketball somewhere. He's a very talented guy. And Minnesota's losing 3 of its top 5 scorers. They graduate, 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5 of its top 11. So this Minnesota team is not, they're not supposed to get 4 stars in its program, and it's like they're getting everyone back basically, and it's like, okay, Minnesota's going to be really good, especially with Coffey. That's not the case. So after 3 years at Minnesota, he has proven he's a really talented guy. So, why stay for a 4th and, not do anything for your draft stock? If you can make money playing basketball now and not really help out your future a ton by staying another year in college and not making money, I get it for guys like this to go. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong, but I get it. Amir Coffey does what next year? Plays even better, and Minnesota gets to the tournament, and what? He becomes a second-round pick, maybe? There's just not a whole lot to gain, I don't think. And it sounds stupid because you see guys like Kaminsky junior year to senior year, and it's like, whoa, where did he come from? But everyone knows Coffey's talented. It's just he's a junior already. And so next year, he's going to be really talented and a senior. So he's even older than guys coming out for the draft. So I get it with some guys like this that might not even get drafted leaving college. And again, Minnesota's losing a decent chunk of its core for next year. So moving up to Iowa, Tyler Cook is the name. He is going to be gone. He was a talented big. I loved this Iowa team this past year. Tyler Cook was one reason why. Him and Garza inside, and then they had a number of guys off the bench who were bigs who played really well, and then you had a bunch of guards on this team that could shoot. Tyler Cook has said he's gone. He'll get drafted. I'm sure he'll get drafted somewhere. I don't know if it's going to be first round, but I'd be surprised if he didn't get drafted. Joe Wieskamp is another guy who it really sounds like he's just going through the process and gaining information. He was a freshman. He's like 6'6". He showed he's got talent for sure. That's another one of those guards / wings that Iowa had that could shoot. And again, he's 6'6". He's long. He could play defense. He could drive. He's talented. We didn't really mention him much on this show, but he was a pretty talented freshman, realistically. Just amongst other talented guys at Iowa that made this team really good top to bottom, inside, outside. So Wieskamp, it sounds like he's staying, but he is going through the process, technically. They graduate Nicholas Baer, who was the number 6 scorer, and you lose Cook, who was your number 1 scorer. But outside of Baer, outside of Cook, they return their top 10 guys. So 8 of the top 10, Wieskamp probably coming back again, like I mentioned before. So this Iowa team should be pretty good next year. Again, I'd be surprised if they didn't make the tournament because, again, they've got a number of guys coming back. So we'll see, but that's the latest with Iowa.
Where's their recruiting class fall?
It is 10th. They've got 1 4-star, 1 3-star, and I want to say this too, that, 10th in the Big Ten, that's crap. It's like, well, if you inject 1 4-star who does really well for you alongside 8 of your top 10 guys coming back, it's like, damn, this is a pretty good team. And you add a 3-star who may be able to add quality minutes for you, and the 3-star could be better than the 4-star. I mean, just because you have a certain amount of stars next to your name doesn't mean anything.
You get me going just by saying stuff. This is, and I gotta tell the listeners, this is not like pre-planned. We're like, ooh, I'm gonna throw you a bone so I get you all worked up.
Right.
You know that, Kevin, when it comes to rankings and it comes to all these things, I could give a rat's you-know-what. And here's why. Okay, so you got the 10th best recruiting class in the Big Ten. So what are we comparing this to? Are we comparing names? Are we saying quality of player, number of players? Because
right,
you said they're returning, 8 of their top 10?
Yep, correct.
How many scholarships do they have?
Right. They don't have a ton to give out.
How many scholarships do they have to give out?
Yeah.
So I was in this predicament a little bit when I was ending my first tenure at Upper Iowa University, Kevin. I was moving from D3 to D2. Had a roster, young roster. It was very, very, I think, 2 seniors. And I broke these scholarships up. There was a point in my second year, I just needed role players.
Yeah.
I just needed to go in and get role players. Does it mean I had a bad recruiting class? No.
Right.
I, didn't have any money to spend because we were limited in scholarships due to Title IX, which I still think is a great thing, but limited men's soccer. And so I worked with it, and I already had 10 starters. I didn't need to. Now, I wouldn't pass up a starter if I had a chance, but also I'm looking at it, Kevin, going, I need to round this roster out. I need guys that can fill in here. I need a guy in here, and I need a guy here. I don't need starters. I'd like starters if one fell into my lap. But every coach goes into the off season. It's not just a free-for-all like, woo, we're going after all the 4-stars, going after all of them.
Right.
I don't think the common person understands this. There is a scientific, well, I shouldn't say scientific. There's a method to recruiting if you're good. You're recruiting what fits your program, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a 4-star. Again, would you like them? Kevin, you'll probably roll your eyes and say you're really saying this again. You've heard me say this a million times. Just because the kid is a 5-star, is he going to fit with my system? Is he going to fit on my team? Do I need that kid? He's got great talent, but is he going to run diagonal? Is he going to get back behind the ball on defense? Is he going to run triangle? I mean, can he do those things, and can he do them effectively in my system? The answer might be no. He might be the most individually talented guy in the world, but he won't fit on my team. So I don't need him. And people might think I'm crazy, like, oh, you want to pass up that talent? Yes, I would. When you're building a true team concept, sometimes you don't need to get a 5-star. Yeah. Look at Paul Christen, his offensive lineman at Wisconsin. Now, granted, I think he's landing guys now.
I think this is the first year. I think this is the first year he's actually getting a 5-star offensive lineman.
Normally, they're 2 and 3 stars.
Right.
And they're all playing in the pros.
Yeah.
So I wanted to interrupt there, Kevin, when it comes to recruiting rankings, because what is the comparison? Who are you comparing it to? Are you going to go through and are you going to grade it in reference to team needs and what that team needs and how many scholarships they actually have? Because if you don't have any scholarships, you're not getting a 4-star recruit. I'm sorry. I had this happen to me. Again, we're off on the tree branch. Had it happen to me, Kevin, I had no recruiting money when I moved to Oklahoma. I had no recruiting money. Kid wanted to play for me. He knew me from my prior school. He played for a guy that was an acquaintance of mine. I couldn't give him any money. Had none to give. Why would he come play for me? No money to give. So you can't blame a kid when there's no money to give. Doesn't mean we're not out there trying to recruit him. Would love to have you, but I have no money to give. Maybe next year I will. And, that's a gentleman's agreement, right, Kevin? If I'm not there next year, is that other coach what's the player going to do? Well, the old man said I was going to get money this year. Yeah, so what?
Right.
I mean, that's going to be the answer.
Yeah.
Carry on.
By the way, with this team, Fran McCaffrey is the head coach. They're getting a 4-star, number 71 player in the country. He's 6'8". He's a nice wing. Again, Fran McCaffrey is the coach. This kid's name is Pat McCaffrey. So that fills up one more spot that Iowa knows they're bringing in because it's, the coach's kid, and he's really talented. So that even limits your scholarships even more so when you know your son's coming to play for you. So that's another thing that just kind of the cherry on top of all this.
Yeah, carry on. We're already over an hour now.
Yeah.
So much for a short
Maryland.
show.
Right. Maryland. Number of guys here to mention. They graduate technically none from the top 8. So this team could be really, 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 really good. They're really talented, and they were extremely young this past year. Anthony Cowan was a guard. It sounds like he's not going through the process even, so he should be back. Jalen Smith has already announced that he's returning. He's a big, along with Fernando. Smith announced he's returning. What they are probably losing is Fernando, the big inside, who it's like Hap, Fernando, those two guys, dominant on the inside in the Big Ten. Those two guys are just dominant. Fernando's probably going out this year. He didn't necessarily help his draft stock from last year to this year. I think he would have been a first-round pick last year. Projected number 28 in the CBS Sports latest mock, which, again, was like 2 days ago now. So, if you can go out and be a first-round pick. Again, could he be the guy? I guess maybe, but this team has a lot of talent already, and they're all coming back, and they're all going to be really good.
Here's my thing with Fernando.
Yeah.
So do I think he's ready to play in the NBA? Wasn't thoroughly overly impressed this year with his game, right? However,
yeah.
You brought this up a couple times. You put another year and another year on those legs. The NBA wants to be young, right, Kevin?
Yeah,
why do you think they're now going to pass this rule? You can come right out of high school. Right. I think he can only hurt his draft stock by coming back. I don't think he can. I don't think he's going to get any better than where he's projected right now.
The only way he improves it. The only way he improves it a lot is if it's like, hey, look at me, I can shoot threes now, and I can shoot threes very effectively. It's like, damn, this guy is really good on the inside. We already knew that. He's massive, and he can shoot now. Holy crap. This is a real frickin' prospect now.
And what are the chances of that?
Right. To do that over a 4-month span, 5-month span, and say, hey, now I'm a really good shooter. It just doesn't happen like that.
And so my point here is, as much as I'd like to see the good players stay in college basketball, this one, to me, makes all the sense in the world for him just to throw his hat in the ring and take what he gets.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to go out there and he's not going to become a top 10 pick. And if you're not a top 10 pick, you basically get thrown in the pool with everybody else. He's going to get drafted.
Right.
But I don't. The only thing that I think could happen is he could hurt himself. Not physically, but if he goes out and he doesn't prove dominant, the teams are going to be like, well, is this guy getting worse as time goes on?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, in my opinion, like I said, I love seeing these guys play college hoops. He's got to go out, and he's just got to take his medicine and take whatever he gets. I mean, if it's a low first round, that's good. Kevin, part of me saying I don't know what's going on overseas this year. Part of me saying he could fall into the top of the second round.
Yeah,
so,
maybe.
I don't see him going any higher. I don't see him going any higher than 20.
Yeah. If you fall to the end of the first round, by the way, and you get to play for Boston or Milwaukee or Toronto or the Warriors, that's not exactly a terrible thing.
No, it's not a bad thing. The thing is, you just don't want to fall out of the first round.
I agree. Yeah. That's when it becomes guaranteed,
first round
non-guaranteed.
Is guaranteed, yeah. Everything in the first round is guaranteed.
Yeah.
So, again, where he's at, Kevin, if he goes out and has a stinker of a year, he's in the second round. And I'm not even sure. I'm not even sold that he's going to be first round this year. Yeah. I'm really not.
Not even stinker. Like he would obviously make an impact and show his greatness in games like he did this past year. But if he doesn't expand upon that, then it's like, okay, you're another year older and you're not dominating even more than you were. So that will hurt your draft stock because now you're a junior. Now you're 21, not 18, like some of these other kids who have 3 years to develop their game just to get up to your age. So that's
my thing, Kevin. There is though, what did he really do against the good players? I mean, he was still good, but again, it's gonna fall back on me. I'm gonna give Swanigan the reference to Swanigan, the reference to Comiskey. I mean, that to me is what's going to happen. Is he a difference maker in the NBA? I don't think so. He'll be a good player, but I don't think he's going to be a difference maker. And that's fine. You need players like that. But honestly, I look at this draft, Kevin, and we'd have to go name by name. But how many really, truly impact players are going to be in this draft this year? A handful?
Every year there's like three. Every year there's like three. 3 guys that it's like, damn, those 3 guys are good. Otherwise, yeah, they're solid, which is fine.
Yeah,
But, again, like I said before, there's like, 30 players that are stars in the NBA? Tops? 30 stars? That even seems too high. It's probably like 20. So.
Yeah. All right, carry on.
There's not many. Maryland also has the number 3 recruiting class, a couple 4-stars coming in. So team's going to be really good regardless, especially if you're getting Cowan and Smith back. They're going to have a lot of talent. They're all going to be a year older next year. So team to look out for sure. Wisconsin, also no players from Wisconsin reportedly testing the NBA waters. Only thing is they graduate Ethan Happ. Khalil Iverson is another one, number 5 scorer. But losing Happ will hurt. There's no question about that. But we'll see what Davison can do and King can do and these other guys that it's like, okay, the show is yours now.
I'm going to disagree with you, Kevin. I'm going to disagree with you. I think losing Happ is going to help.
Okay. And we've seen it with Swanigan and Purdue, and, we've seen it in the past where these teams get better.
I was just going to reference that. And, people might think I'm crazy. You're losing a great player, right? But what do we always talk about during the season? This team is going to go as Happ goes. And when everything is on his shoulders, how did they do, Kevin? Just tell me how they did. When the ball had to be in Happ's hand and he had to win games, how did the Badgers do?
Yeah, not very good.
No,
he needed everyone else to step up around him. So
they lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Because they counted on him. You need to have 5 guys on the floor at any time that can scare the opponent. And the Badgers have some good players. I honestly think record-wise, they did better than what I thought they would do. And part of that is the role players that are around him. I think the Badgers will have a better team next year. I'm not going to say that they're going to finish higher in the Big Ten than where they were because they exceeded my expectation.
Yeah, they were 4th.
Yeah,
they were 4th.
I thought they'd be more like 6 or 7, somewhere in that range. So a 4th place finish next year for me, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
But I really believe, Kevin, that losing Happ is going to make everybody else play together. People might think I'm crazy that are listening that are Badger fans, and I'm not saying Happ's not a great player. I'm just saying sometimes they relied on him too much. He had his best success, and the Badgers had the most team success. And we've talked about this. The magic number was 6 assists. 6 or 7 assists. When Happ had assists, the team crushed other teams. Crushed them.
Yeah.
Didn't just beat them. And when I mean crush, I'm talking 8 points. That's a crushing for the Badgers. But when Happ had to be the man and teams could collapse on him and the guys from the outside were not hitting shots, they were done. But I'm going to say this. When there's no Happ, these guys got to get in a rhythm early. Think about some of these games, Kevin. Okay, we're going to feed the ball to Happ. We're going to feed the ball to Happ. Oh, they're collapsing on him. They're triple-teaming him. This is 8 minutes into the game. We're going to make adjustments. Now we're going to start taking some jump shots. You were a basketball player. Could you wait 8 minutes to take a shot, Kevin, or get into the groove of a game? No.
That'd be very annoying.
You got to be in that groove in the first minute. So I just think overall, they may not have a better record next year, but I think they're going to be a better team. And I think they'll be a tournament team again.
Yeah.
They're still going to be tough defensively.
Yeah.
This is a team I think that'll make the tournament again, maybe end in 5th place in the Big Ten. But I think it'll be a different watch because you won't have the transition from Kaminsky to Happ and, we've got this dominant big man. I'm actually quite excited about seeing the Badgers next year. So I wanted to interrupt there and just say, you said it's going to be a big loss. Yeah, it's a loss, but I don't think it's going to be a big loss. I think the Badgers are going to be just fine. Carry on.
Fair enough. Right now they have the worst recruiting class in the Big Ten. They have 1 3-star committed, but as we have said before with Wisconsin football, you can turn a 2-star into a top 5 pick. So that, same holds true in basketball, not as often. But, again, was Kaminsky even a 3-star guy? I don't know, maybe. But by the time he exited college, was he as good as the number 1 pick as far as playing in college? Yeah, probably.
I'd have to go back
remember.
and check, Kevin. I think Kaminsky might have even been a walk-on. Like, I think he was recruited. I don't think he got a scholarship in his first year.
You might be right.
I'd have to go back and look, but I don't think he was a scholarship player in year one.
I think you're right, actually. Yeah. So, anyway, moving on from the Badgers for now. Michigan, none graduating from the top 7, which is like, oh my God, this is crazy. Holy crap, this team's going to be really good. Ignas Brazdeikis, freshman, certainly said his name a number of times. If you watch Michigan basketball, you know who he is. Maybe a second-round pick, potentially. There's not, this huge NBA is festering, waiting over him. But he's put his name in and basically let out a tweet saying, yeah, I'm going to the NBA. So he's basically 99% sure gone. Charles Matthews also 99% sure gone. He had a year of eligibility left, transferred from Kentucky. He was a really good player. Brazdeikis was a really good player. So they're losing those two guys. Those are two very good players that Michigan's losing for next year. Jordan Poole is another one who's probably going to test the waters. He might not, but he's more than likely to return. But just wanted to say Matthews, Brazdeikis, all but gone at this point. So, again, both of those names, they might not get drafted in the first round. Charles Matthews, I'd be surprised if he got drafted in the first round. Brazdeikis, maybe, potentially. But anyway, Michigan recruiting, number 5, a couple 4-stars, so they're getting some talent in there. But, I'm sure John Beilein will, like I said, they're getting a couple 4-stars in there. They'll be able to replace Matthews and Brazdeikis with guys that are talented. And you have Teskey on the inside. You have Simpson. You have Poole probably coming back. This team's going to be really good again. So
are you sure they shouldn't fire the coach?
I don't think they should. No, probably not. Nope.
I just thought I'd ask. They lost in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, just like, 67 other teams, I guess. But anyway.
Just bringing it up, youngster.
Yeah. Can only be one title winner. It's a little hard
had to be a smarty pants for a little bit. Just cracks me up.
I hear you. Purdue.
Wait till we do our other show and we talk about Sullivan from the Penguins. It's cracking me up, too.
Purdue was second. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, just giving you a little foreshadowing for the shows. It's a good little plug for anybody listening in this late, hour and a half into a show we thought would take 30 minutes. Find us on Twitter at YoungsterOldMan. We do a couple of radio shows on Saturday, and we talk national sports, some Pittsburgh sports because the stations are in Western PA. But find us on Twitter at YoungsterOldMan. Carry on, my friend.
And thegrilling-truth.net for all of our podcasts. Purdue, Carson Edwards, he's gone. Everyone knows that. But they also graduate Mr. Klein, who people definitely know from March Madness, and they graduate Tyler Eifert's brother, Grady Eifert. He was on the team. He was the number 5 scorer. So they're returning 7 of their top 10, technically. And they've got some talented guys, like Eastern is talented, Wheeler's talented, Harms talented, big. So this Purdue team will be good again as far as recruiting goes, getting a 4-star, a couple 3-stars in there. Nothing insanely special to report. But Purdue's got talent coming back. They've got some talent coming in. They'll be good again. No question about it. It just won't be the Carson Edwards show. So not having Klein, not having Eifert probably will hurt a little bit, but there will be guys that will step up. No question about it, in my mind. So
and they proved me wrong this year. They proved me wrong. I wasn't sure that those guys were going to step up.
Yeah,
we talked about it a number of times, week in and week out. If this team had to rely on Edwards every game, they weren't going to be very good. But what happened is that team really came together, and all of that supporting cast just kind of jumped on his back and said, "Yeah, feed me the ball, we'll help you out." So I was real impressed with the way that Purdue played team basketball, and those support guys stepped up. Again, being a Badger fan, it's a very similar approach to what the Badgers wanted to have happen. They had their stud, but they needed guys to step up. Wisconsin guys were inconsistent. Purdue guys were pretty steady all year, game in and game out, and that's why they had a great year. And they made a little run in the NCAA tournament. My mind could went even further, but again, you just said 67 losers can't fire 67 coaches.
Yeah, Matt Painter is a hell of a coach. Hell of a coach. They were a second away from beating Virginia, by the way. So, pretty nice little year they had. Michigan State, going to go through this very quickly. They graduate McQuaid. They graduate Kenny Goins. Those guys, very good role players for sure, had their moments. Seniors that will be missed. As far as guys going out early, Nick Ward potentially maybe go through the process again, but he's probably not going to go out. There's, at this point, he's not going to get drafted probably. A couple of years ago, it's like, hey, there's an intriguing big man at Michigan State who's, showing some promise. And then like his sophomore year, it's like, not as much maybe. And then this last year, you saw him coming off the bench sometimes. So talented guy, affects the college game for sure. But I'd be surprised if he went. To me, he's going to be a 4-year guy that's going to be really good at Michigan State. So losing McQuaid, losing Goins, no word on Winston whatsoever.
And then I'll give another NBA reference to a player like that, Brogdon from the Bucks.
Yeah,
there's a good 4-year player from Virginia, and having a very good career so far with the Milwaukee Bucks. Ward can be a guy like that. Probably not going to be an all-star in the NBA, but a good, solid contributor, a guy that might go out and start some games when there's an injury, work his way in, be a very good contributor for a team. That's what I see from Ward. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Draymond Green spent 4 years at Michigan State as well, and he's done pretty well for himself. So, not that Nick Ward is the same player as Draymond Green, but you get my point. This team's going to be very good again next year with Winston and Langford coming back and what's his name? Aaron Henry. This team, Tillman. You made a point on Tillman and how good he's gotten already. This team's going to be very good again next year. So no surprise there.
Yeah, Mr. Tillman, really man, he just came out of nowhere. He was a good player. And then he just, all of a sudden, it's like he got abducted by the basketball aliens, Kevin. Literally got abducted. Oh, my gosh, it's getting late. He just got taken over, and they injected him with basketball sense, and his game just, quadrupled, just amazingly. So, no, It's nice to see. I saw it right in front of my eyes. Oh, he's a good player. Very good player. And then it's like, wow, this guy could be a great player. So hopefully he keeps working hard. But that's the thing. You start getting a taste of the success. How hard is he going to work in the off season? We've seen it many times where guys finish season strong, and then, bam, they come back next year and well, what happened? Where did he go? And it's because they decided, I'm a good player. I don't need to work hard anymore. So
there will be no better foursome than Winston and Langford and Henry and Tillman on any team next year. No question. Those 4 guys, those are very good players.
Yeah,
next year,
pretty good.
All on Michigan State. Some people think Michigan State's the number 1 team starting next year. So
they're okay.
Good.
Those 4 are okay.
Yeah,
they're not bad.
No. Nope. Not bad. Not too shabby. Can't wait for next year already.
If I'm a Spartan fan, I'm not worried too much. They'll be fine.
Yep.
Yes, I'm sarcastically going through these cliches to make them sound average. I mean, we just kind of looked at the Big Ten, Kevin, and we just talked about who's coming back, and you and I believe that this is the best conference in America. And we'll have to see how things roll out because I'm thinking next year, and I might even concede, the ACC might be better next year. Might be. I'll have to look at it. We'll have to see how things roll out, right? But still going to be a good conference. But who's going to compete with those 4? There's not another team in the conference that can go 1, 2, 3, 4 and match up with those 4. There's not another team that can do it.
As of now, they're my number 1 team. And Virginia is going to be very good again next year as well. But Michigan State's, they'll be my preseason favorite as of April 16th. So
and
just
the
a little
same thing will happen. They'll lose an early game to Duke or North Carolina, and then they'll fall down to like 7 or 8 in the top 10. They'll get in the Big Ten Conference. They'll lose like 3 or 4 in a row, and people are going to be like, oh, what's all the hype about Michigan State? They're not that good. And then, bam, March will roll around, and they'll be in the Final Four. I mean, that's the way Michigan State basketball rolls.
Yeah.
There's not a team
be
right now, Kevin, on paper that's going to compete with those 4. And that's not including any recruits that Izzo brings in. That's not including the bench players that are going to get 10 times better because now they get an opportunity.
They've got the number 2 recruiting class in the Big Ten as well. So they've got talented guys coming in, as always.
All right. What else you got, my friend?
That's it. I'm done. Long show.
All right.
Over.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. We should have knocked on wood. But that's because I went off on tree branches a lot. Hope you enjoyed the show today, everybody. If you made it this far, just go to Twitter. Follow us at Youngster Old Man. Yeah, whether or not you want to follow me or the Youngster, you can at Troy Robert 967. The Youngsters at Kid Cunny. Hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll get back at you next week. Same place, same time on The Grueling Truth. It is now .com, Kevin. I don't know if you knew that. TheGruelingTruth.com. So
very nice.
We look forward to coming back at you next week. Have a good week, everyone.